I'm here with Mr. Chris MacAskill. He's the co-founder and president of SmugMug. And I've talked to Chris before. I think we did an audio interview a while back when they had a big pricing change. But he's graciously agreed to come on again with me to talk about another pricing change or a tweak to their pricing that they just made, as well as some other things that sort of go behind the scenes at SmugMug. So Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. It is a pleasure. Where are you at right now? You look like you're in a nice little loungy room in your living room, or
That's right.
you're
And-
you're on your man couch there. It looks like.
yeah, it's pretty much my man cave.
Very
I'm,
cool.
I'm in my pajamas.
See, that's TMI. I didn't need to know. We don't need to know about that. All right, let's dive right in. So rewind a little bit. Let's talk about the first pricing change that you guys did, which we interviewed. You and I, you were very candid on the interview, and then This Week in Photo, we went on to publish an article that sort of went in depth a little bit. So we're going to wrap all that up in this interview. But that first pricing change, for the folks that may not have heard about that, what was that pricing change, and what was the impetus behind it?
The very first, we introduced Pro Accounts in 2003 at $99 a year. And then in 2005 or 6, we raised it to $150 a year, but our existing subscribers, we kept at $99. And then this time, we raised it to $300. That's a big jump. And our existing subscribers, Pro subscribers, went from $150 to $250 per year.
Okay, got it. And then on that, before we talk about this next level of the change, a lot of the flack that you guys got was because you and your son Don put out some videos saying, okay, this is why we did it and all this. And one of the things you said in there was, we're increasing the prices because of hard disk space prices and storage and all that. And a lot of users cried foul in the comments. They said foul. So can you address that and kind of, just address it from the top?
Yeah, well, so our storage costs are going up around 60% a year, and we're not growing at 60% a year.
Simple math.
Yeah, so it's simple math. I think it caught a lot of users by surprise. It's not intuitive because they go down to the electronics store and you can buy a 1 terabyte USB drive for $99. We've all seen those prices fall like crazy.
Yeah.
And so Don and I thought the prices were going to fall on storage. I was running around here for 7 years. We didn't change prices for 7 years, saying, storage is going to be free. I mean, it's just going to be, it isn't going to be a major part of our costs, even though it is now. But lo and behold, it didn't work out that way. And looking at the numbers, I think it was so non-intuitive. We were shocked every year looking at the numbers because we didn't expect Nikon to come out with cameras like the D800. But more importantly than that, cloud storage, which is the storage that's really super redundant, where your photos are stored in 3 different locations around the world and they're always online, fast, and so on. That really hasn't been coming down like that. It's Amazon's prices for storage have just slowly been coming down over the years, not quickly like consumer storage. Okay. And then we did all kinds of things to make it so uploads were faster, yada, 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 that you could sync with Lightroom and people's bandwidth went crazy and everything else. So our storage just went bananas. I mean, an event photographer now will shoot 2,000 photos and upload them all. Whereas before they would edit them first and choose maybe 250 to upload.
Right.
But now it's just this huge pipe of stuff coming at us.
And then like like you mentioned, software like Lightroom and increasing bandwidth speeds and all that stuff. So that just sort of lowered the friction towards just pouring all that data in there. And and for me, I'd say it's kind of a when you look at it, it's like, why not? Why not I'll just start using SmugMug as my backup. I'll just upload everything and then I'll choose from there instead of choosing on my side. So that if that's what people are doing, that's not the preferred action. Is there any way to sort of stop that or retrain people to, hey, why don't you just upload what you really want to SmugMug?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've kind of trained them the opposite way because every time we engineer something like a really good plugin for Lightroom, then they do the natural thing and use us more and more for backup. And so, I mean, what we could do is institute some storage caps like every other blue chip brand. I mean, think about Apple, Dropbox, Amazon, Google, anybody who offers storage. None of them offer unlimited like that. That's a blue chip brand that's fairly big. but then we have to give them tools to manage the storage better, and we just didn't have all the level of tools that we really wanted to do that yet. And an awful lot of people are saying they really value unlimited storage, that it was like one of our number one value propositions. So we chose to raise the price instead of all the tools for managing storage. Maybe in the future, people are asking for help in managing their storage now. So, we're going to work on that for the future.
So if someone is saying, "Hey, I'm going to use SmugMug as my cloud storage, since they have this unlimited storage thing, I'm going to take advantage of it," they're not uploading their raw originals, right? These are just JPEGs or high resolution JPEGs, correct?
They're just JPEGs, but the default compression for Lightroom, for example, is not much compression at all. And an awful lot of people are saying, "I don't want any compression." Compression is one of these things that scares people. The labs used to always say, set it at Photoshop JPEG 10, because 12 is 3 times the size with no perceived, quality improvement.
Right.
But now the defaults, because people are afraid of it, their files are 3 times what they used to be, because they have a higher bandwidth, and they're just taking the slider and saying no compression. I'm scared of compression.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, then let's sort of segue that into the change to the change. So this next level pricing change. So you made some changes to the portfolio level accounts, and you made some additions to that. Can you take me through what the different levels are and where the changes are, so we can get a clear picture of what happened?
So basically, there are two consumer. We have consumer accounts and we have pro accounts. There are 2 consumer accounts and 2 pro accounts. The 2 pro accounts are business and portfolio. And when we originally conceived portfolio, we conceived that it wouldn't have commerce. That's why we called it portfolio. So you could still buy and sell through the labs, but you couldn't have a price list and mark up the photos, which involves a lot of extra expenses, submitting a 1099 form and us paying you electronically and giving you all the sales reports. Plus, there's a lot of other features that people typically want, coupons, packages, and so on. There's a lot of effort to engineer.
Yeah.
And so we just didn't have any form of commerce for profit in the portfolio account. But whereas the business account had all that stuff. So that's the way they work.
Okay.
So you want me to talk about how to change?
Yeah. Talk about that. So pricing wise, so if I had a portfolio account before this change and I'm paying X amount, and after the change, so just like from a dollars and cents standpoint, what am I getting for value, or what would I've had to do before the change in order to get the ability to sell?
Yeah, so before the change, portfolio accounts were $150, and after the change, they're $150 per year. That's not per month, right? So we don't scare anybody.
Yeah.
And but the only difference is we just added the ability to have a price list so that you could sell.
Okay.
So you can go, mark up your 8x10s to $10 or whatever you want, and then you can sell, make profit, and we'll pay you, and so on. It doesn't have some of the more advanced features that the business account has, like packages and coupons, the ability to have multiple price lists. I should be clear on that. It does give you the ability to have as many price lists as you want, but one active at a time.
Okay.
Got it. And the reason for doing that is when we were going through the data and looking at the heavy storage users are the people who shoot weddings and families and events and so on. And so they typically have more than one price list. The up-and-comer independent who been tugging on our heartstrings with the price change, they're the ones who just have one price list usually, and they're not using all the extra features or storage, so they're lower cost for us to make.
Now, was this change based on the most vocal or the most frequent comments that you had on the first pricing change? In other words, was this a reaction to the squeaky wheel saying, "Hey, we need pricing"?
Yes, I think it was emotion more than anything. When we made the first price change, we have a lot of customers, and quite a few of them got furious. We'd studied the price change that Netflix had done, and all the pundits had said, well, the mistake that Netflix made was they didn't contact their customers directly immediately. They heard it from the press, and they didn't have a video ready immediately. So we decided, oh, well, let's learn from them and do those two things, which turned out to be a big mistake. Pundits aren't always right.
Right.
And
That's why they're pundits, right?
because it kept us from talking to a lot of our key customers beforehand. Thomas Hawk and Michael Barnacle and all those people, Trey Ratcliffe, who could have been vocal in our defense and would have passed the message along in a reasonable way, but we didn't want to leak because we didn't want people to hear it from someone else. So we contacted them directly. And then, our loyal customers didn't want to wade in with all the anger, so they just held themselves back. They would email us. But so with some of that anger, we could have responded, but we wanted to see if it settled down, and it did. But I kept working the help desk, and so did Don and everyone else in the company. And the ones that really moved us were not necessarily the angry ones, but they were students, up-and-coming photographers who we've always served well, who just don't have a lot of money in this economy, and they're not using a lot of resources. They're not using a lot of storage and so on. And, we looked at the numbers. The numbers worked well for us with the price raise. Our prices went up. Mm-hmm. And so our sales went up. So we were able, to serve our customers better, add more engineers, the whole thing. All that was working as planned. But the emotion of getting all these emails to the help desk saying, oh, I'm just a student. Yeah. And I don't know if I'm going to sell my prints. Thousands upon thousands of customers saying, I really don't know if I can sell, but I dream of selling. Mm-hmm. I've had a SmugMug account for 2 years, and I've only sold a print or two, but it was just such a big kick to do it. And I just dream of buying a lens, mm-hmm. or nonprofits, people who are doing something for an independent dance studio or the Boy Scouts or whatever it is. And, we looked at the numbers and we'd say, well, by the numbers, we did the right thing. And then we'd look at these emails and say, but we didn't do this. Part of why we're doing this is we love photography and the community. So It was an emotional decision more than anything. We're independent. We don't have investors. We're independent, so we could do what we wanted.
That's great. Well, let's talk. I want to take that little vein of why you guys are doing this. So, like the beginnings of SmugMug, when you and Don sort of co-founded and sort of had the idea on a napkin over coffee that, hey, we should do this thing. Rewind back to then. Like, how did the whole thing start?
Well, so Don's napkin over coffee is to just go write code. So he wrote code for about 6 months to do this online gaming community, because he had come out of software companies like id and that made Quake and Doom and so on. He wanted to do an online community for gaming and was really excited about it. We were going to license the Doom or Quake 3 engine from id and everything else for a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And he got me involved, I think, because I had some business experience and I could raise money and I had some money and so on. And he was starting to starve. We would go around and we would demo the software, and he had a photo gallery piece of the software where you could put game art in there, screen captures of kills and things like that. That's what he was intending. And whenever we demoed it, people would say, well, can I upload a photo of my baby? And we'd say, well, why would you want to do that? And, well, I want to show people, I want other things in my photo gallery besides screen art. I was like, really? In the meantime, I owned a motorcycle message forum, which is now huge. I think it's one Adventure Rider. It's one of the largest in the world. And there are people who ride around the world and take photos of themselves in front of Mount Cook in New Zealand or whatever. And they wanted permanent photo galleries where they could tell their stories, and they wanted to be able to link them to a forum, which you couldn't do with the photo sharing sites of the day like Shutterfly and so on. So I said, Don, there might be a business here where we don't have to license the engine. It was 2002 when the venture capitalists thought the internet was over, that Google was the last play, and they didn't fund gaming companies at the time. So I said, well, we might actually be able to bootstrap it. So we just offered a basic account for $29 a year. You had to have a lot of those accounts to pay for your Wheaties.
Yeah.
And we got 5 subscribers the first month. And then it was November of 2002. And then in December of, we discovered Google AdWords, and I started to run some AdWords, and we got 13 subscribers. And sales doubled month over month.
Wow.
Baby.
That's a great chart, even if you don't put numbers on it.
And then 6 months later, we were getting something like 16 subscribers a day, and and it was really going, and people were starting to like it. So that's how it started.
So where was the SmugMug? What was the genesis of that name?
Oh, it's kind of funny. I was running a company called fatbrain.com, and it was a bookseller competing with Amazon, but for professionals, geeks, and things like that. And believe it or not, it grew out of my garage to 100 million in sales and went public in 4 years.
Jeez.
Then got bought by Barnes & Noble. And Barnes & Noble hated the name, so they changed it. But the name was electric. In fact, the ad behind me was the golden man that we had. And the ad says, when your IQ is higher than your body weight, you can't always find what you want at the family bookstore.
Yeah. Nice.
Phenomenal. Just the name turned out to be phenomenal. It had a lot of attitude. It was distinct, unique, created emotion, and so on.
Yeah.
So we went to a naming firm, and they suggested the name Fotolio for SmugMug because they said, you'll never be able to compete with Kodak. It's the golden brand. Don't even think about consumers. You know, this is a brand that's been established for 100 years in America. It's partnered with Disney. You need to go after higher people, you know, who have DSLRs. You're never going to get consumers.
Right.
So name it something like Fotolio, which is an aspirational brand. But Don had his heart set on consumers in those days, and SmugMug was easy to spell, and it was funny, and he just liked it. I was a little bit nervous about it. My wife actually came up with the name just by combining syllables. But then another guy came up with it independently, and Don liked it, so we just named it that, and off we went.
And then the logo, the smiley face. Well, where was that? Was that a firm as well, or did you guys just come up with that?
We didn't have any graphic designers, so Don took a D and rotated it. The logo.
So it's a colon and a D, right?
Colon and a D, and worse than that, I shouldn't confess, it's in Comic Sans font.
That is awesome.
A little bit, so it's not Comic Sans anymore. But he liked Comic Sans because he liked comic books.
Wow. Okay, well, let's go from a lighter topic to a somewhat darker topic. And I hope you'll indulge me on this because we, like I said before, we did this post on This Week in Photo after our initial interview where we sort of speculated what might really be going on behind the scenes, things that you weren't able to talk about probably for legal reasons. So I want to put you on the spot here a little bit. We know publicly that there's a lot of patent trolls out there that are sort of, you know, doing the piranha thing on these bigger fish and trying to get money out of them on some somewhat questionably nefarious and crazy patents. So can you speak to that? I mean, is that kind of what might be behind some of the pricing issues that you guys are going through? And because some of this stuff is legal, so we know what's going on a little bit from a superficial standpoint. Can you take us a level deeper into what is actually going on, and is SmugMug being attacked by patent trolls?
Well, that's absolutely behind what's going on. And when I mentioned there were two factors about our price raise, one was storage and another was development costs. It was really hard biting my tongue and listening to our lawyers and saying, you know, you can't mention your legal costs. So now I finally decided, you know what, nothing beats the truth. I'm just going to mention it because it is a huge factor. You speculated on it. A lot of people speculated on it. I'll give you one example. One of the 8 firms, I can't use the term patent troll. Some courts don't permit it. But there is this firm, VPS. It's a law firm in Chicago. Mm-hmm. They've successfully sued a lot of different companies. One used to work for Pictage, mm-hmm. and Pictage was public about the settlement, which was $3.9 million. Well, you know how many customers Pictage has. How do you spread $3.9 million over those customers? Plus the time that it took, you know, for a lot of people in discovery and so on. That's just one of the companies. They currently have us in trial in Chicago. We've been in trial with them for I don't know how long. It's just become a fact of modern life. It doesn't affect smaller companies.
Right.
So it didn't affect us for years, but once it starts to happen, you know, you get swarmed.
So once you get juicy enough and you start looking delicious to them, then they swoop in and try to take a bite, right?
Once the dollar settlements get significant enough to pay for their legal fees, then they'll do it. And that's the situation we're in.
What kind of numbers are we looking at? Like, what's the real impact on the bottom line for the things that you can do, and or in other words, because of this patent stuff that's going on right now, what are you not doing that you would have been doing had this mess not been on your back?
There are a whole number of things. It's sobering to think. You may think this is just because we're a small company. We have, we're about 110 people, and about half those people work on the website. But our development costs for the website and mobile and all that is, it's on the same scale as our legal costs to defend ourselves against these things.
Wow.
So you could imagine how much more we could do. And, if Don and I and the other engineers weren't working on, the patent stuff. Plus, there are so many features on the site that we don't do in order to avoid patents. A lot of things people ask for quite frequently, you really put on the spot on a forum when someone says, why in the world haven't you done this? And they're angry about it. And I can't really say, well, we're in trial over that. I can't do it.
What are you able to say some of the things that are like? I'm sure there's a group of patents that they're sitting on, but what are some more obvious ones that people would be like, oh, really? They own a patent for that?
Well, so it's public information about VPS and what their patents are. You can look them up and so on. Their patents cover a pro photographer uploading photos. They've sued pro photographers. The pro photographers uploading photos, providing a login for their customers.
Wow.
And then the customer being able to see a small version of the photo, click on it, get a big version, choose that photo, and go get a print. That's patented. So if you do that,
that's the business right there. I mean,
yeah. But it's we would say yes. The other people that they've won settlements on do that. We would say no, we don't do that because, for example, we don't provide a login for visitors. If you own a SmugMug site, we provide a password for a gallery and we'll make them unlisted. But that password is tied to the gallery, not the visitor. We don't get login information from visitors. And besides, most of our prints are bought in public galleries, not ones that are you need a login for and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter. The suit is going on.
Now, have you considered an exit strategy? Like I'm sure SmugMug will never go away, but have you considered, hey, maybe it's a Facebook acquisition target or Yahoo or or Adobe or something like that? Is that on the table?
Well, for almost 10 years, we've gotten offers to sell the company. And we always say, no, don't tell us the amount. That'll mess up our stock price. That we can legally give stock to for people who join the company. And it's been most of the blue chip companies you can name, and even some you probably wouldn't expect. Like we were in my house right here, and we were only 5-6 employees.
Mm-hmm.
Nokia came and wanted to buy us. And they kept visiting and saying, we want to tell you the amount, because if you hear the amount, you'll want to sell to us. And we'd say, no, don't tell us the amount.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to be sold. So they went and bought another photo sharing company, and they paid $90 million. It was a company, I think it was in Incline Village in California. I don't know whatever happened to it.
9 or 90?
90.
Okay, got it.
90 million.
Wow.
I think that company only had a few people in it. So we've always had opportunities to sell the company. Wow. That wouldn't make our lawsuits go away. That would, in fact...
But they'd be someone else's problem at that point, right?
Somewhat, but you're still involved because the lawyers in those companies have to come to you and say, they want to subpoena you or they look through your email and all of that kind of stuff. So,
yeah.
But they would have the money to defend those lawsuits. So because we have to not hire engineers and everything else in order to pay for them.
So for the foreseeable future, SmugMug will remain independent. The ship is running, even though it's on... you're using half of the thrust that you could be using because the other half is going to legal fees and fighting off these trolls and that sort of thing.
That's about right.
Okay.
It isn't in their interest to put you out of business.
Yeah.
It's in their interest to collect some money from you, but still have you keep going.
It reminds me of the Matrix. It's like you're a battery, right? They got to keep the battery alive so that they can continue to extract energy out of it, right? It's horrible.
It's the state of software patents in America.
Yeah.
And there's, you see many blog posts about it from companies courageous enough to blog about it.
Right.
But mostly people just can't talk about it or won't talk about it.
Right.
So,
they're just frightened and paying up. Yeah. It's payola. What about, is there any end in sight for this stuff? Or are we going to see any reform around patents? Or is it is what it is?
So a lot of the bigger companies in the Valley would call me and ask if I would write a letter to Congress and testify about the situation. We were in a very public lawsuit in the Eastern District of Texas at that time, along with a lot of smaller companies. So I did write a letter. It's public on the net. You can search for it. Now I kind of regret doing it because you don't want to become an enemy of,
you don't want to be in the target, right? Yeah.
And I did that. And so it's a difficult situation because you don't want to be a target, but you'd like to see some patent reform. But if you're going to advocate for patent reform, you're going to be a target. So.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, we'll check in on you again in a month or so, a couple months to see where things are going. And hopefully, after the holidays, things will be much better.
Well, what happens is these are long-term things. We've been in some of these trials for years. But
oh, wow. Okay.
What happens is you go along as a small company and you think you understand your pricing and everything's going fine until you get this FedEx envelope one day. Now I just cringe when I see the FedEx logo. Every time somebody walks an envelope down to my desk, I think, oh no, this could be a multi-million-dollar thing, that I open up here. But it doesn't really happen to you until you get to a certain size, and then once you get to that size, so then it becomes this challenge. If you're in the middle, like a company like us, a medium-sized company, or even small, you're big enough to track these lawsuits, but you don't have the enormous cash reserves to defend them in the way that you want, or time reserves. We have no internal legal department, for example. Yeah. We have to deal with law firms. So,
wow. Maybe it makes sense to get an internal legal department? Have you thought about that?
We've been interviewing. They're very expensive to build. How many engineers don't you want us to hire?
Exactly. It's a balancing act, right?
It is, yeah.
Jeez. Wow. Well, then, I know this is a Sunday. I know you probably have things to do with the family and all that. So what's next on the horizon for SmugMug? What kind of things can we look forward to in 2013?
I guess I would make the same noises that Facebook and Twitter would, that mobile is really becoming very important to us. Mm-hmm. Not just that our website really worked well with mobile, but also that our, mobile apps are really great. We have one really great one, Camera Awesome, but it's not really the SmugMug app. Mm-hmm. So obviously we're going to put a lot of emphasis on that. I think one thing, that's fair enough to observe is you see photo websites come up all the time. Every year there's a lot of new ones. Some of them survive for quite a number of years, but you wonder what happens to companies like, when we first got into the pro photography realm, there were a lot of big competitors that really intimidated us. And we kept wondering whether we should even enter this, because when I went to my first PMA show in, I think, 2004, maybe it was 2003, Photo Reflect was there with this enormous booth. Mm-hmm. And the uniform people and everything else. And I thought, wow, print room and Pictage. And, there were a lot of them, really good ones. And what happened to them over the ages? They just kind of went away. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the issue was they looked good when they came out, but in time they got looking dated. And it's hard to refurbish a website. So one of the things, we're determined to do is, to keep it looking fresh so you can make really beautiful websites on it. That seems to be something that really distinguishes us, is you can deeply customize it and make it look very beautiful. Yeah. You'll see a lot more effort in that regard. Those are the big emphases.
All right. So mobile and just the look and feel of customer websites as well as the SmugMug website?
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. All right, we'll keep an eye on that. Chris, thank you once again for being so gracious, and honestly, thank you for being so forthcoming and open about all this stuff. I know, a lot of it's on the edge of should you talk about it, should you not talk about it, and many CEOs would have just been like, or presidents would have been like, we're not going to talk about that. We can't talk about it.
Your legal firms would, because their legal firms would also don't do it.
Yeah.
We had an interesting case study of this. I'll just wrap up with quickly.
Sure.
We blog about various different pro photographers, and we make screen captures of their site and put them on our blog. And we'd always ask permissions and everything else. And somehow over the years, I don't know how, since everybody loved us to do it and they loved the attention, somehow we did that for a photographer, Valerie Schooling, who's very close to us. And we didn't ask her permission. And the way we worded the blog post, we inadvertently made it look like she was doing something wrong. And she was upset and her colleagues were upset. And so a lot of our people went and got a law firm because a lot of people were posting about this evil thing we had done that looked like maybe copyright infringement or something like that.
Yeah.
And the lawyer said, you cannot apologize. And it's like, yeah, but it's the human thing to do. We really did mess up. We owe her an apology. So I chose at the time, took the risk, and just called her and apologized and made a public apology and did it on our blog. And I think that was probably our most read blog post we ever did. And people were shocked. We got something like 1,000 comments. Wow. People were shocked, saying, "You must not have talked to a lawyer before you wrote this." And now we're very close. We've always admired her. She's great. We just made a mistake. We got lulled into something stupid. But it is difficult to open up about some of these things, and I've taken a risk here. But you know what? We've always had this mantra: nothing beats the truth. Mm-hmm. It's always treated us well. Even in our price change, we told the truth on the, in the video. Storage costs are huge. I reserved the truth because I was too afraid to talk about patents, but I'm doing it now.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, this is awesome. I think this will probably get a lot of play because this is in a lot of ways unprecedented because I do a lot of interviews, but very few of the interviews with high level executives are this forthcoming and this relaxed and just sort of, hey, this is what it is, take it or leave it. This is what we're going through, and this is why we're doing what we're doing. So thank you for being so transparent.
This is why we've retained ownership of the company, is we wanted to be able to do what we wanted to do. I don't think there's another company like us in Silicon Valley that is bootstrapped.
Right.
That I'm aware of. GoPro was, but now they've raised money, to fight off their competitors and everything. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, good stuff. Well, this will be on YouTube soon. And sir, you enjoy your Sunday.
Thanks, Frederick.
All right. You're welcome.